Let's continue with our practice, our review of simplifying rational expressions. I'll do number 2 with you. You see in the numerator of number 2, we have a difference of cubes. I hope you remember the formula for that. Why don't you pause your video and write it down? A minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. And of course, you should also have memorized the formula for a sum of cubes. Almost the same, just the subtraction sign is in a different spot. So why don't you pause your video and factor the numerator and the denominator for question 2. So that was, of course, step 1, factor the numerator and the denominator. Now we see we have a common factor of x minus 2 to divide out. That equals 1. So we're left with x squared plus 2x plus 4 in the numerator and x squared in the denominator. Remember that that trinomial in the numerator cannot be factored. If it could, the formula would have told us how. I did also ask for step 3 that you find the restrictions, the non-permissible values of x. We see in this term that x cannot equal 0. We see in this term that x cannot equal 2. Pause your video and simplify question 3. I hope you recognize that 4 minus x and x minus 4 are opposite factors. And when you divide those out, you're left with -1. That's that mathematical rule a minus b divided by b minus a equals -1. The a's have opposite signs and the b's have negative signs or opposite signs. We can, of course, also write this with the negative sign outside of the fraction. Both of these are correct. Our restrictions, we see in this factor, x cannot equal 4. And we see in the second factor that x cannot equal -3. There are 2 more here. Why don't you pause your video and simplify these? These were a little more difficult to factor, but again, we don't learn how to factor in Math 103. I already expect you know how. If you don't, you should consider Math 99, but definitely you should speak with me or someone about learning how to factor because I just expect you can. We saw here that x plus 3 was a common factor, leaving us 4x plus 3 all over 2x plus 1. And again, remember that you cannot cross these off and get 2. These are common terms, not factors. And we don't divide out terms, only factors, only those parts that multiply. When we look at our restrictions for x, in our first factor, we see that x cannot equal -1/2. If you're wondering where that came from, we said that 2x plus 1 cannot equal 0. Oops, that's an x. And in our second factor, we see that x cannot equal -3. If you haven't already done so, simplify question 5. We had opposite factors again. When we divided those out, it was equal to -1. So we have the negative sign outside of 3 over 3x plus 2. For this factor, we see that x cannot equal -2/3. And in the second factor, we see that x cannot equal +3/2.